Good evening, model railroaders, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast, where it's just regular folks talking about model railroading. I'm your host, Andy Dorsch. Joining me tonight from the hole is Mike Ostertag. Mike, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm
doing well.
I'm better now. I had a real dingleberry of a day at work today.
Yeah, mine wasn't great either.
Yeah, and I am so happy to be here, running the second section tonight with you. So,
I could really use a little bit of brain, whatever you want to call it, where I just don't have to think. I just don't want to think.
Yeah, a little relaxation and a little
Yes.
levity. I think that's what we all need here this evening. That's for sure. So we have a familiar face coming back to us here in the studio this evening. He is here to cash in his free sub sandwich.
Yes,
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to get his 5 timers jacket.
Yeah.
Mike Rose. Mike, welcome back. How are you?
Great to be anywhere. So great to be here.
That's very good. So since the last time you left us heroes here at the second section, you were working on a certain part of your layout, right?
Right. I mean, basically, what I ever end up writing about or talking about is pretty much what I either am doing or just finished doing, because that's like the freshest in my mind and usually my favorite thing, right? Because people always say, "What's the favorite thing you lay out?" And I think, well, what I just did.
Yeah. So you're the fifth time on the show. And I'm just gonna breeze over the biography here for you real quick, if you don't mind. But so you have a pretty substantially sized HO scale layout, and you're modeling the Conrail, right?
Modeling the Conrail, absolutely.
The Conrail. So what year are you modeling Conrail?
1984.
1984. Okay, that's so give us so Conrail, and where is your layout located in the world?
I'm modeling the Conrail Lehigh line, or a portion of it. So it's basically mostly the former Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
And, my northern staging for Conrail is Sayre, and everything as you head south out of Sayre, you get to visible Conrail train in Towanda, and there's action all the way down the line at that time, which is one of the reasons I picked that time. And a couple of very large customers, Mahupani being one of them, the Procter & Gamble plant there. There's one industrial park that's already in operation, and another one that is probably what we'll talk about next time, actually. So,
so we're ready teasing the next show.
It's in the next show.
Right.
That one will be the final piece of the Conrail layout to be built and to be brought into what I call presentable. And then I model all of the interactions in between, including portions of the D&H, a small short line that operates out of Towanda, and a more extensive short line, the Pocono Northeast, which we'll talk about a little bit later, as part of the interactions with Conrail, in more than one area of the layout. That's the sort of interesting part of that little short line. They roamed all over the place at 10 miles an hour on their own track and low profit, and hung in there for quite a few years, mainly on spun off Conrail trackage.
That sounds
Really
like heaven.
That sounds like a future short line of the show, Mike Rose edition.
Yeah.
Three locomotives and one caboose that lasted X amount of time before somebody burned it out. And a few pieces of rolling stock and some fairly, I think, interesting consignees. But again, we'll get to the P&E maybe a little bit later, because what we're going to talk about is going to tie into something about the P&E future. So I'm trying to finish with that.
Sure.
A lot of the greater Pittston area is modeled on my layout, and as you continue to head towards Allentown, probably the last modeled area will be the general area of Mountaintop, if you know where that is. It's on the Lehigh line, and is basically anything beyond that would be like the Lehigh Gorge itself, with everything, that whole beautiful scenic area down there, Jim Thorpe and all of that kind of area before you get into the greater Allentown area. So that's the basic premise for the layout.
That sounds. I just love those big scenic, those like the gorge and the valley and the canyon scenes. I think they're just fantastic when they're on a model railroad. That's for sure. So, so you have a banner hanging behind you. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about that a little bit before we got into the meat and the potatoes of the show this evening. So, tell us a little bit. What's the deal with Rose Hobbies?
Rose Hobbies started almost as a joke 25 or more years ago, when the last close hobby shop closed up, and I just realized that maybe there's a little bit of a niche among my prototype modeler clan, and it turns out there was. So basically, I carry all the stuff that a prototype modeler would probably want to use, and what really has kind of taken over Rose Hobbies has been the install business. So Dartmouth Locomotive Works is kind of what comprises a lot of the Rose Hobbies business. So I would say that really for the last 10 years, that has occupied, it's almost like a second part-time job, really, doing sound installs, primarily Loc Sound.
Yeah. So are you do you get like a dealer rates with Loc Sound then?
Oh, yeah, no, I've been direct Loc Sound since the beginning of the Select era. And,
okay.
We carry the scale sound system speakers and all the good stuff. So
that is the good stuff. I love scale sound speaker systems. #not sponsored. I think they're fantastic. I absolutely love them.
I was a little annoyed with my buddy JT when he first brought them out, because I realized it was going to necessitate me yanking all of my old speakers out and replacing them, and I've done that.
JT Burke, right? That's the fella's name. Yep. Yeah.
He was on the podcast once. He's a very cool and very smart dude. We shared a little bit of a recording studio background, and we had talked about that a little bit. So, I mean, he really, he knows his stuff, and he's very good to his dealers. So, I mean, I can't say enough good stuff about him.
Yeah, I mean, all the installs that I've done with scale sound, just fantastic. It's fantastic stuff. So, out of curiosity, so let's say someone wants to get on your backlog for doing installs, or how would they get a hold of you?
Mike
through Micro.
Through Rose Hobbies, mrhobby.com. I mean, the URL is right up there. You can message me through that. You can get me through the Facebook group, the Crew Call podcast group. There's like 4,000 people on that group now, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
One of the nice things about that too is it's this huge brain trust, and there's a lot of railroad people on the group, which I find very, very gratifying. And when I ask a question or I need a little help with something, it's amazing the response that I get. I posted something the other day. I'm going to be needing these pressure vessel loads for a consignee that I'm going to be building, and the guy from Yelton Models up in Canada.
Is that Pierre Oliver?
Not Pierre Oliver. No, Chef Dan.
Chef Dan. Okay.
I'll be doing a show with him at some point soon.
There we are.
Yeah. He sent me a picture of something that he had in stock that he makes. And I said, well, that's great, but it's too short. I want it to be twice that length, and I want it to be double-ended. And he just did it. And it's actually on the way to me now. So that's just an example, of the kind of help you can get from from really important people that are really important when it comes to getting your modeling right. I'm going to be building a model of the Pocono Northeast offices, which is basically a 2-car garage and not much else, but the building still exists. And a guy I know down there who's also modeling the P&E took accurate measurements of the building and sent me fully scaled plans of the place. And I'm actually beginning work on that now. So it's just an example of how, if you attract enough people's eyeballs to what you're interested in, and they are too, the overall body of knowledge out there is really impressive. There's some Reading and Northern engineers that have been just very, very instrumental in information about some of the consignees and the operations, and I could go on and on about that, but you get the idea. So that's one of the nice things about having the podcast group.
Well, and I have to say, like, just you have a really good community that's active, and it's all sorts of good content coming in. It's not, and it's all helpful too. And I think I've been a part of that for a few years now,
Right.
and longer than that actually. And if I go back through the backlog, and not only just to get inspiration, but to get help, you guys have a lot of people that share a lot of information there. So I think it's super cool.
The other thing I've noticed, by the way, and
it.
I don't know if you guys have noticed this with your group, but as I've been operating more and posting pictures of operations, invariably, let's say I post, I don't know, 6 or 8 pictures, right?
Yeah.
Invariably over the last, I don't know, maybe year or two, maybe even 2 years, at least one of those pictures will just go viral. It'll go insane. And it'll have like a post reach of 40,000, 80,000, just ridiculous numbers for whatever reason. Maybe it's the AI algorithms that Faceplant is using now, but
Faceplant.
But I shouldn't say
All right.
that, but and every time that happens, I'll get like 80 people or 100 people that'll join the group in a week. It's amazing.
It ebbs and flows for us, I think. Wouldn't you say, Mike?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we have a lot of, like, our Facebook group has got a lot of activity on it between shows. Like a lot. I mean, if I'm not posting something, Andy's posting something, or there's a plethora of other people that, a lot of modeling stuff, which is, and a lot of it always ends up in a short term, ends up relating to either a guest we're coming up on having, or a guest that we've just had and talked about stuff like that. And it almost seems as if, like, between shows, we end up seeing people's names that I don't even recognize. I'm like, oh, this is a new person. Oh, this is a new person. And I try to keep up with stuff, and it just, with work and everything else like that I got going on right now, it's just, sometimes it gets kind of tough to find an hour to sit on a computer and do something,
Yeah.
I think with any group too, you probably find that 90% of your activity comes from 10% of the members. That's kind of
absolutely
a rule of thumb that you can't argue with. So, but what's interesting, I think, is that every once in a while, some tidbit of information will just come out of nowhere, and you go, "Wow, that's just gold," and that's what I get a kick out of. I mean, it's 4,000 of my closest friends. I mean, 99% of those people I don't know. But I've gotten to know some of them from the group. You know what I mean? So
right,
it's just kind of been all good, which is I don't know how many things I like that anymore. With social media.
The fun part for me on that whole thing is looking kind of like whatever subject matter they have. It's not necessarily the hows or what they even did. It's the small, intricate little details and the level that these modelers are going to. It seems to have, like, no end.
There's good
Yeah.
modeling out there.
There are some modelers out there who absolutely blow you away, and you've never heard of them.
Well, that's
ever.
right. And these forums do give them a way to maybe gingerly or timidly put something out there just to see, and it's like they learn quickly. It's a very friendly audience and a friendly forum, for that kind of thing.
Do you find sometimes? Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. Go ahead.
Yeah, like, and I just want to. There's been a person in our group. His name's Michael Culham, and he has been just comes out of nowhere, joins the group and starts posting content, and some of the stuff he's putting there is just absolutely brilliant, and it's just unbelievable. And I've never heard of this person until we've made the connection through the Facebook group, and
now everybody knows about him.
Yeah, now everyone knows about him, and everyone's just interacting with them, and it's a really good community experience. So
next thing you know, he'll be a guest on the show.
That would be a good idea.
That is a good idea. That's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. I mean, and that's one of the things too, right? Is the fact that we do these things. And for me, I don't know about you guys, YouTube, but for me, one of the things I like seeing is it bothers me, but I like seeing it at the same time, is when they put something out and they right away they say, I'm not sure if this is good enough. And then how many times have we seen that, Andy? And you look at the picture and it's like, the hell are you talking about? Not good enough. My God, that's one of the best things I've seen in a long time.
No, you know what? That is everybody's fear. And the very first time I went to Naperville, you're going to laugh, right? But I brought a couple of A-line boxes full of models and left them in the car.
Oh, really?
It was I was too intimidated to bring them in.
That's so funny. That was one of the reasons why I didn't bring a couple of items that I've been working on to St. Louis. After seeing the quality, I mean, compared to with Dennis Eggert and some of his stuff, like this stuff here that I have on my tracks looks like a Turds on Wheels parade, compared to some of these guys, and I just,
but you know what? If you brought models, you'd get good comments, and if you brought something that was work in progress, people love work in progress.
Yeah,
they ask questions about it, and you might get some helpful hints or tips or whatever. I mean, I encourage you to do it.
You know what? I'm gonna pull the Band-Aid off at the next RPM and bring it.
Can we put that on Can we just put that on a T-shirt, please?
What's
the
that?
Section podcast.
Turds on Wheels parade.
Turds on Wheels parade. Please, a nice brown shirt with white lettering. That'd be all it has to be.
That's what we'll do for our patrons on Patreon.
Well,
but
there we go.
Anyways, so we talked a little bit about Mike Rose Hobbies, and I would be remiss if we didn't bring up the fact that it's almost been 3 years now. And we sorta now today, as of today, the ink is still drying on the contract, but we kind of have a sponsor.
Wow.
It's kind of a sponsor in the fact that our friends at Engine House Services are doing a special offer for the section crew this evening. And it's only during the hours from basically like right now until midnight tonight. And right now, if you go to Engine House Services to their website and load your e-cart up with all sorts of goodies, and you type in, let me see if I can find it here, second section. So that's second with a capital S, section with a capital S.
One word.
All one word. In the coupon section, you're going to get 10% off of your whole cart from now until midnight tonight. So this is an exclusive for the Second Section podcast viewers. And we got to thank our friends over at Engine House Services for putting this on tonight. Very, very kind offer from Justin and the crew there. So I will be flashing this up probably every 20 minutes or so, but make sure you get second section when you go to check out in the coupon, and you'll get 10% off your whole cart. So Scale Trains SDL 39, 10% off that. There you go. I'm sure there's exclusions on some stuff, but we'll have to check with Justin on that a little later. So
he's in the chat.
he's in the chat. Yeah. So he can probably respond, but huge deal. There's going to be a lot more coming from Engine House Services and the second section. So Mike and I don't see a dime, but Justin's just doing this out of the goodness of the heart for the viewers of the second section. So super duper. Thank you so much, Justin. So, all right. Now that we got all the formalities out of the way, we are going to go and Mike, we need to ask Mike Rose, what's going on? Yeah, right. Where are we at here?
I have the same problem with my buddy Mike Confalone. We ended up, we just settled on, I call him MC and he calls me MR, and that's
there you go. So we'll go Mo and Mur. So we got Mike Ostertag, Mo, and MR here. So yeah. So I think now's a good time to jump in, and why don't we talk about what's been going on the Lehigh line in 1984 in your basement, Mike?
Okay, well, I think the last time I was on, we had been talking mainly about my my roundhouse project at Pittston Yard, which is on the north end of Pittston Yard, and at the south end of Pittston Yard, and really, I guess it's technically, I don't think it's part of the yard. It's part of actually Pittston Junction. You have to cross a bridge over the Lackawanna River to get to Pittston Junction, but it's a very close proximity kind of a deal. But Pittston Junction is something that we talked about a little bit. I had worked on the Pittston Junction, Pittston Yard office, which is located there, but we were at that time we didn't have the backdrop ready.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't do much with Pittston Junction until we got the backdrop up for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is that you need to get up on top of Pittston Junction to put the backdrop up.
What?
So it kind of precluded doing any of the vegetation and finished ground cover and all of that kind of detailing until we got the backdrop in place. And the backdrop's about 11 and a half feet long. So it was really, not a trivial undertaking. And it was very, very critical. So, and my buddy, Mike Confalone, did most of the shopping on it. Another buddy of mine, Lance Minheim, helped to de-skew many of the pictures. I took all the pictures on a yard visit with another buddy of mine, Tony V, who was a Reading and Northern engineer at the time. And he got me an incredible yard tour of Pittston Yard. And as it turned out, those pictures that I took were very fortuitous because they give you the right perspective when you're standing in the aisle. Had I tried to take these pictures from the road, I think it would have looked bad. You can't get back far enough. It wouldn't have looked right.
Right.
So a couple of the Reading and Northern guys said that some of the views, and you'll see them as we move forward, it's like my two cohorts. So there's Confalone on the left and my buddy Dave on the right, who's been working on the layout with me for about 38 years.
Oh, wow.
And I've known Dave since first grade. So we go way back. And Confalone, of course, we have cross-pollinated so much that our thoughts are completely intertwined at this point.
Oh boy.
It kind of sounds like Mike and myself. I think.
Better or worse.
Right?
Yeah, for better or worse, Mike and I are always talking about the railroad.
We'll start talking about something on his layout, and I'll say, "Boy, you should do such and such." And he'll say, "Get out of my head! I was just going to be asking you about that." So there's been a tremendous amount of that. So what you're looking at there, by the way, is the old photo mock-up of it's just basically a block of wood. With some pictures of the right scale of the Pittston Junction yard office. Those were actually taken in 1984, so I basically used those to make my model of it.
Yeah. So I think we touched on this just a bit in the last time, and let me see if the pictures are in the right, or maybe they're not in the right order here. Let me see if I have to readjust, because we want to look at the backdrop stuff first, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let me
Good
see.
luck with that. Good.
This
So you had
is
the right. You were on the right track with Confalone and my buddy Dave there.
okay. So this in fact is the finished scene at Pittston Junction today, or is
Nope.
that no? This is not.
Nope. That's the wood block mock-up
Oh
with
yeah.
mock-up of the backdrop printed on my laser printer. And if you look at it closely, you can see it's all pieced together with Scotch tape.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So this is the precursor to
Yeah, that's what it
the
looked like at on our last show that we did.
All right.
So you can see there's the mock-up all pieced together on the wall there, and it's just part of it.
Yeah.
I think this photo is basically showing that prior to get ready for the work, I finished the road, striped the road and got all of that done, because I didn't want to be dull coating in front of the finished backdrop. And if you notice, even down to the left there, that long straightaway there with the crossovers, there's no vegetation there at all. It's very, 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 very sparse. So all of that got completed as part of this effort.
So I'm going to ask a silly dumb question. Do you have a process like working from the backdrop out to the fascia, like from the back to the front, so you don't damage all this stuff in the
To
foreground?
that, I would say, obviously.
Okay. I just, I didn't know if this was just
having done it the other way. I had to replace a big long backdrop over a finished scene one time when the thing actually like faded out on me. That was not fun. I have to tell you that I had to remove a lot of trees and make special areas to sort of like be up and on top of and in. There's only one way to do it: back to front.
Yeah. So there's a little tidbit for all those that are starting layouts or wanting to get into it. Like I've made this mistake where I've in the foreground here, I've done the work, and then I have the stuff that I got to reach over, and I've mashed many a detail and many a tree.
Now there's some caveats to that, of course, because obviously you don't want to put your finished backdrop up and then be making a scenic mess that might splash on it, right? So you got to kind of use your head about it. Here you can see that the track's all down, it's ballasted, all the ground is covered.
Mm-hmm.
But what you won't see are any details or any trees or anything, because as you'll see in future pictures, because I needed to get up on top of the thing and with a piece of foam over that, nothing that could be damaged or not easily removed would be done before the final backdrop. So there you go. There's a picture of the ground cover all in place and ready for us to come down and do the backdrop.
There you go.
Even those little trees there got removed. So there's actually, that was like the day before. So you see the piece of foam there. That's actually rigid foam. And over on the right, there's a big piece of plywood, and I'm basically going to be using that like it's a wallpaper board.
Nice.
So
and you're going to say, why wallpaper? I'll get to that.
yeah. Hang on a second here. So I think it was one of the first shows of the now being the fifth. You coined the phrase, when you crawl under the layout, you had to do the dirty crawl.
Dirty crawl. There's no dirty crawl here.
There's no dirty crawl here. So we'll see if Mike comes up with a term for climbing on the layout.
This is the clean climb.
The clean climb and the dirty
climb.
There we go. So there was a question from John Garvin too, real quick. He's asking, what do you use for ballast? Because it looks great.
Yeah, the Conrail ballast there is I think it's spot on. You're gonna laugh, but it's actually not model railroading ballast. It was a blasting medium used by the Anchor Hocking Company industrially. So covered hoppers of this stuff got delivered to Anchor Hocking, which is like some kind of glass company. And the engineer that delivered the ballast got a few 5-gallon buckets of it, and sold some to me.
Well, isn't
Wow.
that how it always is?
That's kind of cool.
There's always a story like around here in Wisconsin at the Chicago Northwestern Pink Lady Ballast, right? That's the mystique ballast to get, and
With
there's
a purple ballast that's out
yeah,
on the Santa Fe Transcon,
yeah, exactly,
the white ballast that Norfolk Southern uses. I mean, it's very distinctive.
yeah, very cool.
So there's Mike Confalone cutting out the sky from the 11.5-foot long backdrop in my dining room the morning of the of the mounting, if you will. He was. This is one of my least favorite things to do, and he was only too willing to do it, and I was very happy to have him go for it.
So it looks like, I mean, is he getting right down to the green stuff there, or how did he go about that?
He's leaving a little bit of sky because what you want to maintain is all the fines.
Yeah, this stuff here.
In certain cases, he would cut around like a good-looking telephone pole, as you'll see as the backdrop goes up later.
Oh,
that's not Scotch tape.
No. So the reason for that shot, go back out again, please, just for a minute.
yeah, of course.
So you see the 3 physical houses on the far left?
Yeah.
So that area there kind of opens out to the right and to the rear, whereas so you could use physical houses there, and that takes you down to Duryea Junction and the automotive junkyard that I did there. We may have even talked about that in the
did.
But then you come up on this wall, and the only way to give it any depth is with a proper photo backdrop. But you can see that a lot of effort was made to make sure that the size of the houses on the backdrop were the right scale to match the physical house.
The rooftops line right up almost. I mean, that's what you're looking for, right?
Right. So all of those houses that you see are actually there at Pitt, or they were, I don't know, 6-7 years ago when I took the photos. But there weren't enough pictures taken to do an 11.5-foot backdrop. So that's where the magic comes in. So, so they're all taken from a tripod, so you get a consistent level. But Lance helped to de-skew them using some photographic black magic I will never remember. And then Mike put it all together because he's like the backdrop guy. He's done all the backdrops for all of his friends, really. And they always come out great. And he's Mr. Fussy about the colors and all that. As you'll see later, the colors on the backdrop match my trees perfectly,
Right.
So all of that goes a long way to making it look right. Actually, you can see it right there. I mean,
yeah, right here, the hue.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a hit for sure. Let me see that here. Oh yeah, look at that. That's really cool, Mike. I like how you stitched in like the backdrop with the actual real scene there. That is really good stuff.
Because it's just a wall.
Yeah.
Until you put the backdrop up, it looks like just a wall. We put this backdrop up, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get forward here. But I get down off the layout, and we stood back, and we all just kind of lost it a little bit. It was like we couldn't believe how effective it was. Like you can't really judge these things until you put them up and have them in place.
Yeah.
You hope for the best, and it's usually good enough. But this was just like Mike. I think he said he thought that was the best one he ever did.
Well, it's certainly convincing, right? So you can just I think the thing that I really like too is the foreground. Here it rolls like elevation wise correctly into the rest of the scene too.
Right.
You don't have like these weird, like the one time I did it, I had these weird like cutoffs, and the elevation wasn't right. And I think you guys really nailed it on this one.
It's all experience. I mean, this wasn't his first rodeo doing this, nor mine. And some are better than others, but they're all good. But this one,
Yeah, this one.
as you'll see as we look at some of the other pics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Look at the depth that you
that's
get. So
nice.
that's wrapping around a wide radius curved corner.
Yeah. So you're going around the corner that way.
Right. Now,
Mhm.
just to explain what you're looking at. So you see the single track that's just behind the yellow Conrail truck, right?
Yep. This one right here.
So that is Conrail's Taylor secondary, which was installed by Conrail. That wasn't there in Lehigh Valley days. And the track that is over to the left, like in front of the backdrop there, that's the former EL Bloom line. And that used to cross Lehigh Valley over on the right on diamonds.
Oh,
So now it's just like a full junction. But that track on the left and that track that you're sort of highlighting there, that's all Pocono Northeast in this era. So the only Conrail trackage visible in this shot is the Taylor secondary, and that's how they get to Scranton.
I did not know that. That's awesome. This is the yard office. Is this still this is now
That's
transported
still the
into, or is this the mock-up still?
That's the mock-up still.
Hmm.
That's why I think maybe we were looking at the mock-up on the last show and not the real one, but we'll see.
Yeah. Whoops. I went too far, too fast. There we go. Oh, it's another good shot of it here, looking at it from a different perspective.
So these are all grab shots that I just took with my phone immediately after we put the backdrop up. Now you can see how the telephone pole sticks way up there. But Confluent actually trimmed around that.
Wow.
Oh man. So this is crazy because
The sky is the wall.
Yes.
But you can see that you can't really see the sky between the trees in the photo, and that's because I guess my modeler's eye captured the right color paint, for the sky in that area. Yeah. And all of the photos that I took look like that, and that's just kind of what I went by. And as you can see, the photos that I took that day match that paint color. That's what the sky looks like there.
That's really good, Mike. That
like
is
that a lot.
really, really, really good. So, I mean, you can't even tell where the backdrop starts or stops and the wall begins.
That's the idea. Give it
Man,
depth.
you really nailed it.
The scene looks very deep by comparison now.
Yes, yes.
So there you are, basically at Pittston Yard, looking over the bridge over the Lackawanna into Pittston Junction.
And then right in the center here, that's that Taylor secondary that you're
Correct.
talking about.
The
Yeah.
mainline tracks to the left are the Mountain Cutoff, Conrail, Maine.
Nice.
Need a few trees to finish the junction.
Yeah, you don't really have a whole lot of trees on your layout, do you?
No, it's a little sparse. I realize.
I know.
Work on that.
You should probably work on that maybe one of these days. Are you up to 40,000 yet?
No. I'm at approximately 4,900.
4,900.
Oh my Gideon. That's ridiculous. So I do want to appreciate, I just had to stop here. There's a couple things I want to do here. So first of all, the trees, these are all super trees, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think we talked about on the last show how you go through and manufacture them dozens at a time.
Mm-hmm. I usually make about 80 or 100, roughly speaking. It's about as much as I can stand at one time.
Yeah, and then the second thing I wanted to talk about is the offcut pile here in the back. This is professional level woodworker offcut in the back.
I try to organize it so I can use some of this crap that's there.
My shop looks exactly the same way.
Interesting.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. You got
that wooden crate that you see there. It's actually on wheels, so I can move it around.
Yeah.
And that's the crate that my milling machine came in, believe it or not.
Really?
Yep.
just recycle. That's awesome. Just to recycle
And
that.
the trees are all on my main table saw, which is the DeWalt contractor saw. But over in the right rear is an ancient Craftsman that I have a zero clearance insert in a very fine blade, and I use that to cut all the modeling wood stuff. As you'll see towards the end of the program, you'll see why I need stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if you look at that picture and you look above the Conrail truck, you're still looking at a block of wood there. So the real Conrail yard office has not been built yet. That is all post backdrop, which is why I think maybe you guys didn't see the real one.
I'm getting confused here. I could have swore we went through it in the last episode, but I might be wrong. So here we're starting to add the trees and we're starting to fill some of it in.
Yeah.
Right?
This is the drone view. So in the two bottom tracks on the right there, those are all P&E tracks as well. The really bottom one, that one that goes to Milazzo Industries, which we're going to talk about. And then the other one disappears inside Milazzo Industries. So there's a tease.
And then nice little view block set up there.
Beginning, yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot more vegetation that eventually gets in there. There's one of my road gates there. You can barely see it. Hasn't been painted yellow yet, but it is now.
Nice. Oh, here come the trees. Look at
this.
Here we go.
Now, I deliberately went with much shorter trees in this area so that when you look from the other aisle, because the thing to remember is here you're standing in one aisle, but if you look extreme center left, that is really on the boundary of a different aisle. So there's two different views that you can get of Pittston Junction, and I needed it to look right from both perspectives.
Oh, that's really cool. I just love how we're kind of going through like a flip book almost on how this junction is starting to take shape. This is really cool.
Junctions are tough. They take up a lot of room, and it's not easy to incorporate one on every model railroad. But I wanted it for the operational aspect. You know what I mean? It really is a big part of Pittston Yard in my era, and it's exactly how the short line, the Pocono Northeast, comes in and integrates and operates, because P&E would often go to Scranton and Taylor Yard via the Conrail Taylor secondary. They had trackage rights on Conrail all over the place. So from an operational interest standpoint, I really needed this junction. And in fact, when I was building my addition and they started to lay it out on the dirt prior to excavation, I was out there with a tape measure at night with the lights on, and I got a stick and I'm scratching things into the dirt, and I realized to my horror I needed to make the addition 4 feet longer. So I did. I took the markings that they had marked down according to the plans that were approved by the town. And when the contractor got there in the morning, I said to him, Jimmy, I have to make this 4 feet longer. I hope that's not going to screw you up. And he said, well, what about the plans when they come to do the as-built? And I said, you know what? Small town, they'll never even notice. And they didn't.
You could just chalk it up to a deviation.
Yeah.
So, yep. So just I got a little prompt here from Justin here quick. I'm talking about the promo that we had going this evening. It says here, please let me know if anyone has an issue with the discount code. It'll take me 30 minutes, but I'll get it fixed ASAP. So Justin, let us know if there is an issue. But for those who haven't, Mike, have you been checking the chat? Has anyone had problems?
No, I haven't really been looking at the chat, to be honest with you. I've been trying to focus on what Mike's saying and looking at these pictures.
I know. Yeah, we'll basically we have a promo running this evening with Engine House Services, 10% off everything at the cart tonight. So load up at enginehouse.com enginehouseservices.com and use the promo code second section as you see on the screen. So let's get back to the content here. So just looking at this picture here, am I spying an elevation, or like is it a decrease or a downgrade here?
Yeah, the ballasted tracks off of Conrail go down to the shoddily maintained P&E tracks.
That's awesome.
That's high quality, high speed Northeast rail right there. That's what
Yeah,
that is.
it is.
So here's the construction of the actual yard office.
Not a block of wood. That's not a block of wood.
Nope.
So that's
all
is it.
styrene construction, and I think I had mentioned earlier that picture that you see next to it is really what I was basing my construction on. I had extremely accurate dimensions of the yard office, courtesy of my buddy Tony V, who took great measurements and did a drawing of it for me, which is a good thing because it doesn't exist anymore. Reading and Northern took it down and put up a much nicer building, but not nearly as photogenic, I don't think.
Yeah. Oh man. Now I'm just seeing it coming here. This is the chimney added here and the smoke jack.
Chimney was a big, these little details really make a big difference on this model because the prototype isn't heavily detailed. The chimney is some resin cast chimney, and for the life of me, I couldn't tell you who makes it, but it looked to be just right. I had to shorten it a little bit. And then I just grabbed the smoke jack out of the scrap box, and then the mortar built up around it is just spackle that I piled up around the bottom of it, and then hit it with some CA to firm it up, and just weathered it a little bit.
Yeah, I like that technique.
The brick windowsills with the soldier brick, that was harder to do than you would think, because there's not many things from the scrap box that have the bricks in that fashion. So I had to really scrounge.
So can I ask how you did it?
Just cut pieces out of scraps and sanded it to the right thickness.
There you go. Oh, now we're looking at the other side here in the back.
That's getting pretty now.
So
I like the way you did the stucco on there.
I was just going to ask, how'd you do the stucco?
Just like I did the roundhouse. It's actually sponge painted.
Wow. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I painted the whole thing concrete and then sponge painted the white.
The stucco. Looking at, I'm guessing stairs here.
Yeah, the concrete stairs, as you'll see in one of the pictures, had this detail. So I took a Pike Stuff staircase, which is pretty plain, and then added styrene strip to replicate how the prototype was.
There you go.
Wow.
Prototype modeling.
Just getting into it.
And these are awnings. There must have been a big sun problem there because every window and door had a significant awning over it. Unfortunately, my buddy Jimmy Simmons of Monster Model Works makes a pretty cool set of awnings.
Okay.
So I used his models for that. You'll notice that the sides of them are sort of filled in looking with green putty. That's because on this particular prototype, the sides on the awnings were plain. So I didn't put the reinforcing strips that would normally be on the awnings there.
And are these laser cut wood?
Yes.
Ah, very cool. So Jimmy's got Monster Model Works back up and going?
Yes.
Ah, that's good to know.
Awesome.
And you'll see a lot more of his products as we get farther into the other subject of this show. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Oh, look at the stairs now. Yes.
You got to do it, right? It needed the relief.
No, that really adds. I mean, that really gives you that. I mean, it knocks the detail out of the park.
Gives it a lot of character. That just the stairs alone.
Well, it's that type of that construction. I mean, like this staircase can you guarantee it's solid concrete.
Right.
My grandparents had the same one on their house that was built in the early 1900s, and it could withstand a 40 megaton blast. There we go.
So there it is, just testing it in place. Awnings attached, no weathering yet. Notice it has the little Conrail Pittston Junction sign above it. That's actually taken from the actual photo and de-skewed.
Yeah. So Paul Scott August is asking the name for the awnings again.
Monster Model Works. If you Google that, I think you'll find that takes you to a website called Larkspur. But if you just Google Monster Model Works, you'll find all of Jimmy's products there.
Yeah, Jimmy Simmons.
Anybody, if you have trouble with any of this stuff, you can always email me after the show.
Yeah, or hit him up in his Facebook group.
Right.
Oh, that looks so nice.
Nice detail here with the electrical box there.
That's about the only other detail.
Yeah, that's it.
On the prototype.
The
roof, believe it or not, the roll roofing is masking tape painted flat black.
Yes, I would believe that.
So there it is, in place and weathered. Now the air conditioner is some little plastic kit that was frankly a pain to put together, and then the grill is actually the photo cut out and stuck on the end of it.
That's a clever way to do it, because the radiator screen bit of it can be probably really challenging to get right.
Well, it was very plain on the plastic kit, and I couldn't find one of the metal ones at the time, so I'm happy with the end result there.
Yeah, so then is this now then complete the story? Looks like we added a telephone pole here as well.
Yeah,
is this complete the story of Pittston Junction then?
That's a just planted picture, because if you look around it, you see how it's kind of glossy on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, like right here behind the depot.
Yeah,
or the tower.
So, that gravel lot is done with grout. So I just kind of soaked it down.
Yeah.
And planted the building firmly into the grout, because I hate buildings that aren't planted.
Right.
So that way it gives it that built in place look.
Yeah. And then you don't have, like, if you light the interior or something like that, you don't have light leak coming out through the bottom of it, or
right. I hate the space under a structure.
Yeah. And I mean, it looks heavy, right? It's supposed to be set in.
Exactly. There may be a couple more pictures of the junction now with that in place.
Yeah. So that's the end of our first picture set this evening here. So
and now a word from our sponsor.
At Engine House Services, we sell fun. No, I'm just kidding. So, but yeah, so then why don't you tell us a little bit about so now we've got Pittston Junction complete. Where are we going from here?
Well, the last contiguous section of the layout that was bare plywood was immediately to the right of Pittston Junction, and that's all Pocono Northeast. So I probably spent 5 minutes enjoying Pittston Junction, and then thought, okay, what's next? So,
all right, let me bring up the picture here.
Isn't that the way it goes, though, Mike? Don't you think that's the way it goes? You spend, let's just say, 3 months working on one section of your layout, and you get it to a point where now I'll just move on to the next thing. You look at it, boy, I did a really good job. That looks really nice. All right, now over here, and you never, and then it's 4 months before you even turn around and look at this, and you go back. Have you ever gone back and said, "Wow, well, I thought that looked good, but boy, I'd really like to make this change"? And this would. Have you ever had that happen on a layout?
Many times, because I like to think each scene improves incrementally over the last thing. Although I have to say that the last year or two's worth of work is pretty consistent. The good thing is that because we operate regularly, I get to enjoy and interact with the scenes. and take pictures during the ops and all that. And that's the stuff that I post on the group, you know. So in the past, when you just like build something and then go on to something else that may or may not be anywhere near that, and you're not operating, you really don't get to enjoy it. But everything, my entire goal for the last couple of years at least has been keep working on the layout, but don't do anything that is interfering with ops for very long. You know, the only interference really is my interest and attention to the next op session. You know, so we've had a little break here for maybe, I don't know, maybe a month, let's say, while I've been working on something in the future.
So Mike, can we go down just a little rabbit hole? So how you talked about not really disrupting the layout to prevent you from doing ops for any long period of time. How long has your layout been, we'll call it, I guess, ops ready, so to speak? You know,
probably 5-6 years, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So was your goal to get, because so for one of our listeners, Mike Shanky, he's building a new layout right now, right?
Yep.
And he's just starting the bench work and all that. But did you go and get a majority of the a majority of the track work done first and then started to pick off these scenes, or was it we'll get some of the track work done, see how it operates, and tear it apart a little bit and then go and do that, aside from layout kaboom, which is another story for another time?
I know. Well, I mean, I was going to say to that, all of the above, like the story of my layout is one of manifest destiny. It started out in the basement and then expanded into the rest of the basement in a couple of different phases. Then I put the addition on and moved part of my layout out into the addition. So you can bet that for about a year we weren't doing ops because there were huge gaps in the layout that needed sort of filled in. We've talked about that, I think, on some of the past shows.
Yeah.
Once we got all of the connective tissue in place, and you're testing the layout and you feel like you're ready for ops, then the only obstacle really for me was that you'd be operating through a nicely scenic portion of the layout, and then boom, you'd get onto bare plywood, and it's just like, it kind of takes you right out of it. It did for me. So I was very motivated once I had things up and running to keep finishing scenes one at a time and just gradually reduce the amount of bare plywood. I called it my bare plywood eradication project, and when because for guys like us, Andy, everything's a project, life's a project,
Right.
So grocery shopping, another project. Don't get me started. So you see my wife and I planning a grocery list. That could be a show. But
anyway, no.
Yeah.
The show starts at my house right here. That's where the show starts. Oh my goodness.
Anyway, to answer the question though, which is I think a valid one, I think you must get your trains up and running to validate the build. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to make now like we're talking, of course, main line. Kaiser Valley Industrial Park, I ran that and switched it for almost a year before I etched it in stone. And in fact, it was the experience of running it for a while that made me realize, geez, this runaround is just not long enough, and I can steal some from the tail track and not hurt anything. You know what I mean? I can only get that from operating it, and I ended up removing one industry from it just to get a little bit of less is more going on. You know what I mean? So I'm a firm believer in test running a layout and a scene if humanly possible before committing to scenery. And then that avoids layout kaboom,
Yeah, right. Right.
Do you preset, or do you when you're going and designing like these industrial areas, do you go ahead and say, before I get the track down, I want the building to be this big?
Nope.
And do you work the track around the building or the building around the track?
It's kind of like a little delicate dance between the two, of course. And your chief constraint is always space. No matter how big your layout is, you never have enough space. You hardly ever get to model something full size. Although moving forward here, you're going to see one that is.
Right.
But you almost never get to do that. So for me, it's more about capturing the feel of the prototype and doing it to justify the traffic, because the traffic in and out of the place is what makes it fun to operate indefinitely. So you got to get that right. Otherwise, you're building a diorama and you're not.
Right.
So for me, I curl up with prototype photos, and in many cases, the Conrail ZTS, which is the physical layout of the prototype rails. And I really get that firmly in my head. And it might take me days, weeks, or months, or years sometimes before I get it in my head. But when I have it in my head and I can picture it, then I can build it. It always involves, or almost always involves, a degree of selective compression so that you're capturing the feel of it and the look of it, but getting it to fit where you got to build it.
See, and that's exactly where I'm at on my layout right now. Is I've got my first main line sections and my interchange and all that stuff built, and now I'm getting to the point where I want to start thinking about designing the industrial area, and I have it in my head what I would like it to look like, and I go and I'll drive around and I'll look at different feed mills and things like that, and I'm like, ooh, I like this piece from this, and I like this piece from that. And
well, is yours freelance or prototype based?
It's freelance. So okay. I'm trying to take.
You have more flexibility on one hand, but the lack of constraints also makes it harder to, it's a double-edged sword. So
and with it being a small town, you don't want it to be this obscenely enormous, unrealistic looking industry that would never be in a town of 1,000 people. You know what I mean?
My buddy MC has always preached less is more.
Yes.
And you got to keep that in mind. Like,
yes,
I think control of negative space is paramount to having a realistic looking scene.
I'd always look at
the opposite of what I did in that picture that you have up here, but we'll talk about that.
Well, I always look at like Tom Johnson's use of his space.
Perfect example.
Right. I mean, he doesn't. The industry, the feed mills on his layout, they're not getting 100 cars at a crack. They're getting like 2 or 3 maybe.
Right.
And that's kind of the feel and the look that I want.
Right.
Now it's just a matter of how I can put what I want in my head into the physical form. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a real struggle for a lot of modelers, to be honest with you.
It's a struggle for everybody. I mean, unless you have an abandoned Home Depot to build your layout in.
We have one in Fond du Lac. I should
do you know of one? Do you really?
Yeah, we have one in Fond du Lac. I bet we could get deal
get
on
it for
that.
$1 and we'll build a model railroad layout it.
Then all you need to do is hit the lottery and quit your job.
Yeah, or you could get 10% off at Engine House.
Yeah.
There you go. That was seamless how we just worked that little advertisement in there for Engine House services. 10% off the whole cart.
In this photo? Can anybody tell me?
No, I couldn't tell you.
That looks kind of like well, I see some salt.
So before you zoom in, actually zoom back out a little bit, like where you were. So the trees that you see in the extreme foreground, that's on the right, that's Pittston Yard, and on the left, that's Pittston Junction. And the reason there's a gap is that's the bridge over the Lackawanna River. So this is taken from the opposite aisle. Okay.
Oh, okay. I got you now.
Pittston Junction is on your left here.
So we were taking pictures from the aisle where that industry is before going to the left, right?
Right. So you would then come around the corner here on the P&E.
Yep. And as a matter of fact, those trees on the upper left there are what the photo backdrop dies off behind. So you remember there were 2 tracks there heading onto the P&E out of Pittston Junction. So the track you see is the near track. Those panels that you see are obscuring the rear track. And that's because I'm trying to decouple those 2 tracks because they're really they kind of diverge and go their separate ways on the prototype. So I didn't want to include that rear track in the scene. Yeah, you can see it on the right there.
Oh, yeah.
So what you're looking at are concrete block sections from Monster Model Works.
There you go.
And they're beautifully done. It's the finest concrete block material I've ever found, and they're big. So very few seams in the overall structure. And I've got it up on a strip of MDF just to be the concrete foundation under it. You can see I've got a passage door there and a loading dock door. And I'm just trying to get a feel for the relationship of different heights of the building to freight cars. I'm looking at prototype photos. This particular industry is a pretty good customer for the P&E, and they do ice melt. So they get in calcium carbonate in covered hoppers, and so it's a little different composition from road salt, from what I understand. And they take it and do their thing to it and bag it up and store it and ship it and all of that jazz. So this is the back of the building because I wanted to model the railroad side of it rather than have to just switch out things behind the building. That didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So I had no pictures of it, and I ended up going on Google Maps, and I can get aerials and all of that. But somebody posted a drone video of the whole back of the plant, just running down the entire length of it. So I was able to just pause it, take screenshots wherever I needed to, and I was able to have everything I needed to know to model this building.
Wow!
Right from that, I had the dimensions, the lengths of everything. This building is modeled about 95% full scale, believe it or not, in terms of length. It's 7.5 feet long.
Oh my gosh,
Oh.
that's huge.
Wow.
Obviously, the depth of it is greatly condensed.
Yeah, but even at that, still 7.5 feet long. Holy cow!
I'm telling you, you don't even notice because you're looking at the building and doing the holy cow thing. You don't notice that it should be like 10 times deeper than it is.
So that's incredible. So the ore dock that I'm setting up on my layout is 9 feet long. I thought that was long.
That's a lot.
Yeah, this is huge.
And just for the sake of discussion, it looks like a double level layout in this picture because you'll see a level down below. That's staging level. So that is the tail end of Binghamton Yard off the D&H.
Yes.
And the area that you're looking at it's got a couple of turnouts and 3 tracks, and that's where we can kind of resort and restage trains here. But the yard itself is off to the left, basically.
What's the height between the 2 decks there? 10 inches?
Not that much. I think it's more like 8, maybe.
8. Okay.
If it's important, I can let you know.
No, I just there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
About 8.
The gradient difference between the 2 levels is determined in large part by how much length you have and the ruling grade you decide to have. You know what I mean? So 1/4 inch to the foot. I'm trying to not have ridiculous grades. So I'm using my entire basement as a helix, basically.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at in this overhead, you can see how the rear track and the sort of the partition sections of the building have the cutout in order to allow the rear track to go through the building. I came up with this as a way to completely hide that a train going through there so that it's not part of the foreground scene.
Yeah.
That's kind
That's
of a
really-
clever. That's clever.
Yeah, that is really a smart move.
So a big long building like this, it's definitely a workshop build. But at 7.5 feet, it actually challenged my outfeed tables on my table saw, and in fact, I had to come up with some other ways of supporting the entire length of the front while I was building it, and also as you start gluing up the partition pieces. So the whole thing, I can pick that up with two hands and move it around. But and it's absolutely rigid, but it is well braced, as you'll see going forward. Wood construction, particularly, you don't want it to warp.
No, you don't. All right, two questions. Well, maybe more. One question, one comment. Is that a Biesmeyer fence?
Yes, it is.
Aha! Awesome. And then the second, I guess, is just a comment. When you bring the pipe clamps out to hold your structure together, that's a heavy duty structure.
Yes.
Yeah, these pipe clamps are no joke. I've used
Those
them.
those are my sort of lighter weight pipe clamps, and I use them a lot on modeling projects because there's no other clamp really that's long enough sometimes to do what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I have varying lengths of pipe clamps, but yeah, that's great.
So somebody's a woodworker out there if they recognize the Biesmeyer. I construct things against it all the time, as you can see right in this photo.
Yeah.
It makes a nice setup table, and I think I'm using a drill index here to hold the wall up. It's heavy and square and works.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it does the job, right? Oh my stars! Look at that.
I think in this photo you're starting to see how it extends out beyond the outfeed table.
Oh my gosh!
And there you go.
This is cool. So now you get to see a bit of the picture here, right? This is the back side.
Yep.
Aha! The plot thickens.
Hey, Mike. Before you go on with that, when you got done clamping and gluing all that together,
yep.
Did you have any sway in the piece because of the height of the pieces? Did it bow at all? Did the wood bow at all while you were doing that?
Now, are you talking about longitudinally along the bottom?
Along from top to bottom, yeah. Did it sag in the center? Did you have any issues with that at all? Nothing like that.
No, because I decided to edge glue up the entire front together and then stand it up 90 degrees and start doing all the partition stuff. And as you add the partitioning and because it's got a plywood base, in some cases plywood roof, and it's just super rigid, and it's all glued together with canopy glue. So it's like super strong.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
But obviously you need to construct it on a nice flat substrate or you're out of luck.
Right. Oh, this is cool. So you obviously busted this up into 6 different segments then.
Yeah, and I ended up building 5 of the 6. I elected not to build the 6th one because, as you can see, it's a very weird, very low, big flat kind of a deal, and I didn't think it added anything to my already 7.5 foot long building.
What's the river in the background?
That's the Susquehanna.
Oh, all right.
So, and actually, it's interesting that you noticed that, because the track that you see here in the picture is the track that you see on my layout.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of the river is the other P&E track that I didn't want you to see in this scene.
Behind the building that you're making.
Right. I didn't have room, obviously, for a scene of that depth, which would have been really cool, but
that's very well thought out.
That would have been 10 feet to add on for my addition, and I don't think that would fly. So
that one would have got caught by the building inspector.
I didn't notice that. Yeah. So here we're starting to give it the 3-dimensional aspect. So Of course, every cross brace needed to either be above track level or have a cutout in it to allow the train to go through.
Yep.
That's a close-up showing how when you step down these different levels, you need to treat it as an outside corner. And Jimmy has these very nice outside corners for both his brick material and his concrete block material that allow you to do that
Wow.
very convincingly.
Yeah, I think that's one of the coolest things about the Monster Model Works cinder block like that. It's with that edging that he has there. It's really easy to piece it around. Otherwise, you're having to take styrene strips and meet them up in the corner.
You never get it right if it's wood construction. Also, note that that whole front wall is really a double layer, so you can see it pretty well in this photo.
Yeah.
It needed to be, for something that's 7.5 feet long. I didn't want it to rely on just 1/8-inch edge gluing. It needed something so I'm using plywood to span the joints in back and make it super strong.
Yep. So did you use 1/8 inch or quarter?
1/8.
1/8. Yeah.
There's some 1/4 inch in there too. Some of it's like that floor underlayment stuff you can buy.
Yep, like that tiger board.
Not tiger board, no. Like this is like Home Depot stuff.
Oh, okay.
Now I found one of the more interesting and challenging aspects of this build were because of the level changes, you had to really think about how you were going to, like what you were going to show and how the roof lines were going to be. You know what I mean? So if you look at that back wall, you can see that there's some exposure the whole way of concrete block material that you have to be able to replicate. But you can't slope the concrete blocks. So it was kind of a brain bruiser until I figured out how I was going to do that accurately. It was an interesting project to kind of figure out.
This right here?
Yeah, well, you're sloping on top, but then you've got a different slope in front that you've got to accommodate.
Yep.
But the courses have to be dead level. I actually used a level to help me figure it out.
Wow.
Level and a speed square. Those are the two things, and figure out the pitch of your roof.
Yep.
So there's a question that came in from the chat, Mike. I just wanted to add it in here. So Justin asks, are all your large buildings wood?
So the short answer is no. It just kind of depends. I decided to make this one out of wood just based on the strength of the big, nice pieces that I could get from Monster product. And I like working with wood. I mean, I like working with plastic too. I've always felt like I could make anything with plastic. So it just depends. Like if I think about Mahoopany, which is a gigantic building, that part of that is all plastic. The other one is made of gator board with plastic siding attached to it. So like no two of them are exactly alike. It just depends what materials I'm using and what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's and yes, I like having the wood behind the styrene. I've done that where I've laminated styrene to the front of wood. I really like that too.
You have to be careful with dissimilar materials, that you're not going to get different rates of expansion or swelling or whatever, And
no, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
That's where the canopy glue comes into play because it's got a little bit of flex to it. I think it's tremendous, really. I use it for a lot of things. You've got a broken Delrin handrail, canopy glue. That's a Ken McCory tip. It'll work better than CA, I'm telling you.
The devil's resin is Delrin.
Right.
Right.
So here, that I'm working left or right, and you can see that building is basically self-supporting for several feet, hanging off the table while I work on this part of it.
Wow.
Well, now we're starting to stitch it into place here.
Yep. and I'll use anything for a weight. This particular slope, as you'll see moving forward, gets an extra reinforcement of the roof, because this is where an elevator leg and a couple of silos need to go. So I want it to be very, very stable.
This is crazy. You know, I'm gonna guess, you know, when you look at it from the outside, you'd be like, no way. You know, that this is behind all of the construction here.
Truly how the sausage is made.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably a really odd question, but how much does that thing weigh?
Not much. That's the thing. I could pick it up with one hand if I could balance it, but you could handle it easily with two hands. It's probably
5 pounds, 7 pounds, 5 or 7 pounds, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably 5 pounds, 6 pounds, maybe.
Wow.
So we have another question, Mike, and I appreciate you being a good sport about taking the questions here. So Glenn Fricks asked, Mike, I assume that the roof of the building comes off so you can reach the occasional derailment inside?
No, I'm an optimist. No,
I like to live dangerously.
You're talking to the guy that has an 8-foot section of hidden track behind a wall in my staging level that's completely inaccessible. So, I'm kidding, of course. The building can either be removed as a whole, or there are certain sections of the roof that can come off in the event of difficulty. So, I did account for that, yes, which is always a good idea.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because that's
showing the over braced smaller structure that goes on top of this building, and it's a standard clapboard, northeastern type clapboard, but full 1/4-inch bracing all over the inside.
You could tap dance on this thing.
And there's the building.
Oh yeah, now we're talking.
So that was also kind of an interesting building to figure out all of the slopes and angles on, because the top of it needs to sit level. So you really have to sort of build it on a skew. So, I mean, this was just not a box that you normally build. This was a really interesting build.
Wow. That's a really good picture of it to show that angle. It's basically like a dormer that sits, like halfway on your roof there. And
when you say that, I suppose one way of doing it might have been to just build the building normally and then cut a hole in the plywood and just put part of it down through the hole. That didn't even occur to me till just now.
Yeah. But then you worry about gaps and everything else like that.
Exactly,
right?
Because bear in mind, there's got to be roofing material here. So you'll see moving forward how that was.
You can see the track in there too. That's really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Starting to take shape now. You're starting to get it now.
Right. So time for a little brass origami for the elevator leg.
Brass origami.
These are up close and personal. So you know. The difference between the heavier railings that come with the kit and the etch stuff is night and day. And since it's right in your face, standing there, it needed to look right.
Fine. Yeah.
And I solder all of this. I don't just glue it.
Okay, so that was the question. I was gonna guess it's either CA, soldered, or canopy glue. So I'm gonna guess this. Oh, that's really cool.
So easy to solder it, a little flux and a touch of a hot iron, and it's instantly bonded. So
there you go.
No point in messing around. So this was another very interesting thing to figure out how to build. Studying the prototype pictures, the elevator. So there's this concrete platform that levels it out so that the silos can sit level. And then the elevator leg, which takes material that the covered hoppers are dumping into a pit, and then transfers from the pit by auger to the base of the elevator leg, and then up the leg, and then down through pipes into either one of the silos. But on the prototype, that elevator leg is in this enclosed concrete pit. So I decided I'll just replicate that because that's how it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But it took a little while to figure that out from the pictures.
Oh, there you go.
Ooh, that's looking good.
Oh,
Painted.
painted.
Here's the bin. So there's two bins that I at the kit bash or scratch build for the building. This one, talk about an interesting build. You can see it's a parallelogram, right?
Right. There's no straight angle on that. I mean, you get a little bit
Yeah, I was
here.
gonna
a little
say it's almost like a trapezoid of
Right.
some sort.
bit.
So I took an engineering square and made my lines all around so that I have something to go by when I put the cross members in place.
It looks like this.
Yeah, a little bit.
Whoa, big shooter. Where are we
Whoa,
going
where are
here?
you going, dude? What
got heavy-
are you? Holy
I got-
cows!
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Cut me off.
So there are the two
Ooh.
bins
Another-
that I had to scratch build. Now I deviated from the prototype because on the prototype they're on the other side of that building extension, but they were too interesting not to have in the foreground. So I just moved them up front.
Visually appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really cool. So these are these both scratch build?
Well, the rear one is totally scratch built, and then the front one is kit bashed out of things.
That you found in the junk drawer.
Pieces,
yeah.
parts.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
Wow.
Crying for weathering, but you can see it taking shape. So,
Yep.
Based on the prototype pics I had, that's what these bins look like. It is saltish after all. So,
It's gonna rust.
it's a 3D printed little vent at the top, the spiral vent.
Mm.
It has a name that escapes me right now. What are those called? Anybody?
Anyone out in the chat know what those little wind turbine things are?
I knew what that was called yesterday, and I will tomorrow, but I don't right now.
Yeah.
But that's all done basically with oils.
Yep. Okay. That's so just like raw umber or something like that, or burnt sienna.
I wouldn't know exactly which ones I use. Probably all of them.
There you go. A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yep.
And same deal here.
That was one of the weirdest things I ever built.
Hey.
So here we're trying to figure out how to get the angle right and braced while the glue dries, because that's the part that goes into the building.
So Silver Train says it's a whirly bird.
It's not the word I was thinking of.
One's Ralph Franzetti says turbine vent. Cyclone vent.
Maybe. I love that people are tossing all this out. And you know what? Depending upon where you live, they're probably all correct.
They're probably all right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a regional dialect of some sort. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're whirly bird on top of that. They're
I think
bin.
the cyclone vent is what I was thinking of, though.
Yeah. Yeah, we call them whirly birds. Daniel Banks. There you go. So there's
And where
section.
is that, Daniel Banks?
Yeah, where in the world do you call them whirly birds?
I have my guesses, but I'm holding my guess.
Ron Stanek, whirly bird.
Interesting.
We'll come back to that in just a second. Where in the world is the whirly bird?
So we're at the painting stage here. So
Yes.
I think what I did was paint the whole thing white, and then I've masked off the white so I could hand paint the concrete foundation here.
Oh.
Indiana. Okay.
So I'm gonna, Indiana. Daniel Banks is from Indiana. A little service road here.
Yeah, it's just coming out of the. There's a gravel area, but I think they basically would have forklifts going back and forth. So I think this is a little bit of a pavement, which will be heavily weathered with the salt look. And then they have pallets of their product just stacked up in droves.
So I have, yeah, oh yeah. So I have a
whirly birds.
So what did we?
Here in New England.
Yeah, whirly birds. So what did we use for the road here?
My standard spackle mixed with powdered paint pigments. Pardon the alliteration.
Yeah. So this is so this and then you put in like a bit of forming here to keep it nice and straight, right?
Yes, and then then I take believe it or not, a dull knife and cut the form from the spackle the next day and just pry it off.
Wow.
Yeah.
All my roads are done like that.
That's the way
So
to
here
do it.
we have some weathering done, but not all of it. And but I couldn't resist trying some things in place here. Yeah, it's a little more.
Oh, there we go. Now we're talking. So I have questions. So what color did you use for the concrete here? Like that's like people get very particular about concrete color. It's like asking a model railroader, what do they use to clean their track?
Don't get me started on Conrail blue.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And there you go. Right
there. That's exactly
or
it.
Brunswick green. You could you could start a brawl with that one.
Penn Central and Brunswick green, right?
So that is a mixture of Floqual old and new concrete.
Okay.
In a portion that beats me. It's never the same way twice.
So that's the non-scientific, a little bit of dash of this and a pinch of that, and
yep. And you notice it looks different from the concrete up above, and that's not accidental.
That's not accidental. Okay.
Because not all concrete is poured on the same day and has the same
right,
color.
and it doesn't all cure at the same rate.
Right.
So that's actually pretty brilliant there. To
sun bleaching and all that fun stuff too. That's really good. So let me see what else we have here. Ah, yes, trees.
Now, the reason I included that shot, not only because that's what's there on the prototype, but if you look through the trees, you might just be able to make out the rear track.
Right there.
Yep.
Found Waldo.
Yep. Now, that door is the entry door from outside, from the driveway. And to the right, which is not in the picture, I don't think, would be my bridge that connects this portion of the layout, which is the contiguous layout, to the long section that's opposite Pittston Yard, that's on the front wall of my workshop. So that's how they get from one place to the other.
Oh, that's super good.
That's nice.
So I guess how long in terms of time? So from the pictures that we had here, where we started with the plywood and just a bit of the forming to the finished scene that we see here.
Yep. Maybe 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Holy crap.
I mean, like if I look at the bins and the elevator legs and all of that, that's probably a fun week or 8 days, maybe.
Holy, that's like 4 months worth of work for me.
6 weeks.
Well, man. I mean, I wasn't spending 15 minutes a day on it, right?
Right. Yeah, I suppose.
But I'm not putting in 12-hour days either. People all the time say, how do you find time? And I do it often. I enjoy it. So I want to do it as often as I can. And I probably do something almost every day. Sometimes it's half an hour. Sometimes it's 4 hours. It just depends what's available and what floats my boat. This picture is from way back in the day. It was actually sent to me by a guy named Paul Rice, who works for the P&E, or worked for the P&E back in the day. He's been just a treasure trove of information, and I've exchanged information and emails and IMs with him for quite a while. At the Valley Forge meet, he was at my clinic and came up and introduced himself afterwards.
Oh, cool.
And, what a nice guy. I mean, just people have been so helpful. So him and Ken McCory are actually going to come visit the layout before Springfield, the Big E show in February or January, whenever the heck it is. And they're going to stop on their way to the show the day before. So I've actually held off some plans that I was going to be doing for the winter until after that meeting, because I have a feeling that when him and Ken McCurry are there and my buddy Dave and I get to talk to these guys, we're going to come away from that with some ideas and concepts.
Plans.
Right.
Very cool. Look at these ties. These are my kind of ties here. I love that.
Well, there's a reason on my model that there's 2 different colored ballasts on that scene too.
Well, I gotta check the video. Oh yeah, look at that. There's the lighter colored ballast.
That's not real. Yeah, you can't see the siding ballast though. I bet you there's another picture.
There you go, right here. Nailed it.
There's a lot more to be done to this scene. I will say that. But again, at this point, it's presentable. I can operate through it. There's no bare plywood. And I've got lots of time to, improve each area of the layout as strikes my fancy moving forward in my maybe more than semi-retirement.
Yeah.
As long as the eyesight and the hands hold out.
Yeah, there's a comment here, and I think Boomer Diorama says there's no easy method to scratch building, really, and I think he's taking a bit of a jab at the title of our show this evening, but that's true, right? I mean,
I raised an eyebrow at that myself.
Yeah, and then there's a bit of psychology to it as to why we did it, but I think it's a really good point, right?
What I would say to it though is this. It's one thing to buy a kit and build it, and there's an enjoyment to that, and we've all done it at one point or another. If you're a prototype modeler, I find it much easier to get what I want by scratch building than to try to take a kit and use it as anything other than raw materials. You know what I mean? So as my skill set has improved over the years, I find that scratch building is basically just what I do. And, kit bashing interspersed with that, certainly. But I don't build, I can't remember the last time I built a kit as is. I don't do it. I'll use a kit as fodder, as raw materials. But let's call it scratch bashing. How's that?
Yeah, I almost put that in the thumbnail, scratch bashing. But no, I think it's interesting because, I mean, if you take your time and you go through it and plan it the way that you did, I think it's very achievable, to scratch build even as a beginner. I would, it's obviously
you might not want to start with something like this, but
no,
build a trackside shanty, or something like that.
Or even just a simple building flat, like a really simple one. That would be a good place to start. Like Mike, you did 2 scratch builds. You did that engine house.
Yeah, which I'm going to be revisiting.
Which I thought was really well done, but it was very, it wasn't like a complex building by any stretch of the imagination. And then you did that warehouse flat.
Yeah, thanks. And the warehouse was a lot of fun because that was after I watched a couple of Boomer's videos. I'm like, oh, well, I can do that. I'm like, and it was just, and that thing is, building with wood, having the wood substructure and then putting, the styrene over it and doing what I needed to do. And it was a lot of fun to watch the project come together. And I had a lot of fun trying to come up with the resources for how I wanted the structure to look. So mine ended up being like kind of a smashed together version of 2 different warehouses, which are less than a mile away from my house.
That's the way to do it, though.
Yeah, and so I have an original structure that is very plausible, So it's going to end up back on my new version of my layout. So that's part of the reason why that's part of the reason why I'm rebuilding the layout. So it's because I want that structure on there. And the engine house is going to end up being completely redone. I learned, that's one thing, and I don't know about you, Mike, but one of the things is that engine house that I did. I had a vision. I thought it through. I wanted it. And then as I kept on going, I'm like, okay, this is really like almost too much. I can't get in here. I can't do this.
Less is more.
Yeah, it was really, I really learned where my mistakes were.
Yep.
So now
there's an old cliche, about building a house. You know how to build that house once you've built it.
Right.
And it applies to models too, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm going to go back and revisit the same concept, but the way I do it is going to be completely different.
Right. The only other thing I wanted to say really about the whole reason being for this structure is that it's a very narrow section of the layout, long and skinny, adjacent to something that is not, and having the need to do something to hide one of the two tracks. And this kind of solved that problem and made it an interesting thing visually and operationally. So this, for me, this is kind of I've never built anything 7.5 feet long and only that deep. So very unusual build, but it solved like a whole bunch of problems all at once. And really it kind of took care of, I mean, this area had sat undone for a long time because I kept scratching my head out of what I wanted to do there. It's adjacent to Pittston Junction. I'm thinking, well, I should do Pittston lumber here. I took great pictures of Pittston lumber, walked around and back, talked to the watchman who wanted to know why I was back there taking pictures. I was ready to build Pittston, and then I looked at the spot and I thought, I can't put that here without it looking shoehorned in. And the business end of it would need to be on the wrong side for operations from the aisle. And I just thought I need a plan B. And that's when I looked at the prototype and looked at the next thing down the line, and then how I would convey a sense of space, which is why there's a pretty good clump of trees between when this scene starts and Pittston Junction. You can literally go in there with a short train and just hang out for a while, just to convey the illusion of distance before we merge here.
So,
if we go back, and there's a few pictures here.
Yeah.
Sorry, but yeah, you can see that
right
lead-in right there, which I think is really neat. It's a good way to, visually bust it up too.
And really, even on the prototype, the tree line like that goes right up to the end of the building, so it is defensible.
So Mike, you were going to ask a question. I rudely interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay. What I wanted to know is so this basically is a short little runaround track, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so how are the ops handled for this industry, seeing as how it's kind of, do you shove down in there from Pittston Junction? Do you pull in there from
the way, operators can do it any way they like, right? And I sometimes get a kick out of watching a new operator approach. Let's face it, it's a little puzzle at every industry. How are you gonna do it, right? And no two guys do it the same way. I recently had an op session with two guys that a guy and his son who I've known for a long time, and but I hadn't had them at the house to operate. And when they got here, they were not only familiar with the layout from all of the postings, but they had also rail fanned the entire area, even though they live near me. So when they got here, they needed no instruction. It was unbelievable.
Really?
Well, some people come and it's complicated. You have to qualify in the territory. And you explain the whole thing to them. They give you that 200-yard stare, and you think, oh boy, they're going to need a lot of hand-holding. And these two guys just got on a job and worked it. Now, he's a professional railroader himself, which I'm sure doesn't hurt a bit. But the fact that they knew the line and they knew everything, I was floored. I was getting tips watching them. It was incredible. To answer your question, the way I do this So you can see the covered hopper by itself, right? The one in the middle.
Yep.
So that one is typically a load spotted at the elevator, at the elevator leg. And when it's time to switch this industry, you might bring a car or two with you. And I like to pull in on, let's call it the main, and go down the tail track. And then I shove into the siding with my loads. I will take the empty and shove it down farther, like about where the boxcar is, which wouldn't usually be there. I shove the empty down to that end of the siding. So like the Santa Fe car then would be like the next one spotted at the elevator. And then I would leave my loads to the right of that. And the reason those are there is that we need to leave that door open so the forklifts can come and go. And then I back out, go back on the tail track, come down the main, and pick up the empty on the way out.
Oh,
that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. How many cars can you fit on the to the right? How many cars from the end of the switch to the end of the track?
So engine and tail track, you mean?
Yeah, the engine and tail track.
Bear with me, folks. I'm gonna do the loopity loop here to get to the end. Yes.
There.
Yeah.
How many cars are about?
There's a fair amount of track there. So you notice that in the prototype shot they were using the Chessie 2-bay covered hoppers.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I've switched over to those deliberately because now I can have more flexibility and more cars. So I can probably pull 3 or 4 cars down into there easily. I mean, nice. I think I designed it. I'm trying to think now. I probably designed it for an engine and 2 50-foot cars. So that's why I think I can use 3 2-bay cars.
Nice.
But what's interesting, an interesting anecdote, and again, talking about info you get from the prototype. So Paul Rice, the P&A guy, told me that they would usually get a big slug of cars of this product, way more than they could fit into the siding capacity here. So one of their morning conversations when they had that slug of cars is, all right, what are we going to do with all these cars? And they would figure out where they were going to stash these cars all over their territory on extra siding capacity at completely unrelated industries. And I thought, how cool would it be to replicate that? To take these cars and stick them in other places and then have to go retrieve them later. You know what I mean? So I fully intend to incorporate that aspect of it into the ops at some point.
That's a really cool kind of. I've seen a lot of or heard a lot of other podcasts talk about off spotting.
Right.
So it's like that's a pure type of off spot. It doesn't even.
It happens all the time, especially in that era.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, this is a really looks like a fun scene. I mean, you could completely immerse yourself into it, and then from an operations standpoint, there's still a challenge to it, and it's not a spaghetti bowl full of track.
Yeah, I had a ball doing this scene, to be honest with you. I mean, what was less fun was literally years of looking at it, going, "What am I going to do here?"
Oh yeah, and it's funny too because like Mike and I just had the argument about barely an argument, but a spirited discussion about this, about, jamming another industry in, having track. And then Mike was talking about his operations and how this would, this sounds very, very basic track work to get this type of operation on his layout. And I just think it's funny that we were just talking about that this week without seeing any of the photos or the material prior to Mike Rose MR coming on and
today.
Yeah, it was like hour before the show, and then here we are, getting the tutorial Mike on how to do it.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I think the quote I said is, just because you have the space doesn't mean you need to fill it with track.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But as model railroaders, that's kind of our nature, so to speak, as model railroaders, to try to, I think it shows a lot of restraint to be able to not do that.
Right.
Yep.
Because we just by nature, we want to get as much as we can out of it. But then whenever we go out in the real world, we see what they do out there. It's like, oh, well, I guess there's 3 industries on this one track, and it's a track.
Right.
And there's 3 different industries on there.
You can't be afraid to do that either. So,
Yeah.
But again, there's something you might do in one spot that you might not want to do over the whole layout. Right. So,
Right.
There's that aspect of it. I mean, it pained me to pull the 5th consignee out of the Kaiser Valley Industrial Park, but in retrospect, I don't regret it one bit. It was the right move, And if you if you could have been a fly on the wall for the wrestling matches I've had with my buddy Dave over what to do in the Crestwood Industrial Park that's coming up, the one in the former oil tank room, you'd probably laugh, because he's a less is more guy, and so am I. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I'm also, having run the layout and operated, and I know what makes it fun. And sometimes, you got to maybe give a little bit, or, I mean, there's been times when I've modeled something where most of it is theoretical in the aisle just to get the continuity, as long as the modeled scene looks right.
Hey, that's a good question. I wanted to ask you about that.
Okay.
When you're trying to develop a scene, do you take that into consideration? Like say you have a scene that's going to be coming out where along a river, and you're only going to be modeling a short bit of the river.
Yep.
But yet the cool side of the buildings are on the opposite side looking at the river.
Yep.
So do you just say, well, the heck with it, I'm going to flip this around, and the structure is just going to be, I'm going to model the cool side facing the river, even though it's the opposite? Or do you try to stay as true to the prototype as you possibly can, even though it sacrifices some of the cool detailings on some of your structures?
Yep. Well, that's a great question. So, obviously, if I can model it like it is, case closed, right? That's what.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
That's what you're trying to do. Sometimes you can't. When I was doing Tunkhannock, I had sort of a kind of a triangular shaped area to do Tunkhannock in. And if I looked at the trackage on the Conrail ZTS, it could fit into a triangle as long as I flipped it over and mirror imaged it. So I literally printed the ZTS, flipped it over and put it on a light box, traced it out so that I could actually see how it would be. And all of a sudden, click, that's how it's got to be. Because the prototype didn't have to build their stuff in my basement. I do.
That's a good point.
So in the case of Tunkhannock, I got all the scenic elements I wanted. The track layout looks convincing, but if you were a guy who flew over it every day in a light plane, you might look at that and go, wait a minute, that's not right. Who cares?
Yeah.
I always used to tease one of my buddies. He did the area up by Nestoria up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I'd always say, yeah, Dave, this looks beautiful. Everything is perfect except for that switch right there is backwards. He'd say, just shut up and go run this thing. You go see it. So every time I'd always tell him, and his mistake was he told me. Had he not told me that the switch was backwards, I never would have known. So then I'm
gonna give yourself a break sometimes,
Yeah, right.
I mean, there are. I think if I look at it the right way, Pittston Yard is inverted, not end to end, but side to side.
Like front to back?
Yes.
Just how that's not so
how I had to build it. I don't get any complaints, but It literally is inverted.
Wow.
And there's good reasons for it, not the least of which is mainline radius and lots of other things. But again, I haven't. But so when I did the roundhouse and where it was located, and then and then I located where the future coaling tower is going to be. Again, I had to take the photo when you're standing at the engine house area and flip it in a photo editor so I could print that and have it look right, because that's how I have to model it. So if you look real closely on the front of an engine, it's got Conrail, but like in the rear view mirror on the front of the engine, because I mirrored the photo. It's the only way I could do it.
So we do have a question from the chat, Mike. So Dan Leduc asks, what do you use for dirt cover over the terrain?
This is the easiest question I've ever answered. Dirt.
I thought we saw a picture in the construction phase here where it said sifted dirt.
Really?
I think so. I was playing I Spy earlier.
It said that?
It did. There was a box or a container.
Oh, it's on the by the trees. The one with the trees.
The one with the trees.
Oh, you're gonna have to go way back.
Yeah, it's back further than that, Andy.
So not to be flippant, literally, I take a 5-gallon plastic Home Depot bucket, go out in my backyard on the edge, dig up some dirt, and I bring it back into my furnace room and I just leave it there for a few months so it dries out thoroughly. And then I screen it through regular window screen into bins, hence the sifted dirt bin that you saw somewhere. And that's what I use. Nothing looks more like dirt than dirt.
No, that's true. I use dirt too.
And dirt's under everything on the layout pretty much, because that's kind of how the earth is. So I figure you can't go wrong.
Hey,
prototype modeling, right?
There's no place for logic in model railroading.
No.
Right?
Whatever works.
Yeah, any port in the storm.
Right.
Years and years ago, I always liked Mike Confalone's gravel, parking lots and roadways, and he told me he did it with a custom, a mix of different grouts.
Yeah.
He's like Mr. Color and Mr. Fussy about the colors. So I said, you got to mix me up some. He said, sure. So he told me what to buy, and he came down one day, and I put him in the workshop with the vacuum, dust collection going, because he works fast. And he went in there and mixed me up a big tub of this grout stuff. And I thought, oh my God, that's going to last me a few lifetimes, but it's almost gone. Like,
really?
Yeah, it's that useful.
Wow.
Bless you. Yeah, that's really good. So I guess maybe I missed it or blacked out there. Do you do anything to treat the dirt prior to putting it on, or is it just alcohol and?
Okay, so my typical methodology is, and and stop me if I'm repeating myself, but I like to go to the I call it the scratch and dent section in the paint department, but it's it's paint that they mixed up that the customer goes, no, that's not it.
Yeah.
Paint is expensive. You go buy a gallon of latex paint, it can be $30 or $40. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But if you browse the shelves where they put these mixed matches, a lot of times it's an earth tone paint of some shade. Almost doesn't matter as long as it's an earth tone.
Yeah.
I'll get a gallon of paint for $5, $6. I mean, that's what you want to use. So when I'm doing an area that's bare plywood, I will liberally paint on the earth colored paint and immediately sprinkle the dried dirt into it.
Yeah.
And let it dry, maybe smooth it out a little bit. Now, if I'm going to put anything over that dirt, I'm going to really want to bond it. So that's when I'll alcohol it and glue it. Let's say you're going to do static grass or something, right? You got to have it. It's got to be firm, or the glue for the static grass is never going to stick to it. So it depends what's going to be happening there. So there's unbonded sections and there's bonded sections. But it's basically all it is. I saw in the chat somebody said you don't have to bake it in the oven, and I'm thinking, no, I'm not sure why. I don't know where you get your dirt, but mine isn't really that alive. And it does spend a couple months in the furnace room drying out. And when you sift it out, what have you got?
Yeah, there's not much left in it. Yeah, and I think there some people may be concerned about mold or some sort of fungus or something like that. But I mean, I've had
the time you bond it, it's just a non-issue.
Yeah, I think there's a couple schools of thought. Again, it's like, how do you clean your track in model railroading, right? Could start fist fights. But I'm of the subscription of, I use the raw dirt. I don't put it in the oven or anything like that.
I don't know anybody who does, to be honest.
I've heard a lot of people who do it to cook off any potential microbes. But I mean, I put so much matte medium in it and alcohol.
And it might depend on where you live, So I mean, I'm just saying that in New England here, we haven't had a problem.
Yeah, we got clay. That's I don't know what gets in there, but not much.
Our dirt tends to be kind of loamy, so it's a fairly nice, rich brown kind of dirt, which is no different than what you see in New York or Pennsylvania or anything like that. It's northern dirt as opposed to Georgia red clay.
There you go.
Whole different issue.
Yeah. Any other? I just want to test. Let's see here.
Any questions we missed in the chat?
Yeah. Any questions that we missed here in the chat? Get those in here, and then I do want to just take a quick break here to let Mike catch his breath. And I do want to just again give a mention to this show's sponsor this evening. So Engine House Services. So Justin, a friend of the show, is offering a 10% discount code from now until midnight Central Time for those who tuned into the show this evening. So you might have seen the second section in the on screen all evening. That's the promo code. When you get to the checkout, you throw that into the promo code and you will get 10% off the entire cart this evening on anything that you order. So I'm gonna just to show you all how it works. I got my cart loaded up ready for this evening's festivities. So you just go ahead and then in the discount code here, type in the second section as you see it on the screen, and I'll be getting that sweet 10% off on the goods that we're buying this evening. So again, just want to thank them for doing a lot for the podcast and helping us out. So they're giving back to the community tonight with a nice 10% off offer. So yeah, I'd see. Looks like the questions are starting to slow down. But Mike Ostertag, the thoughts on the content this evening.
I mean, every time he comes on, Mike, every time you come on, there's another tutorial of how to just do something, and you make it look so easy. And it's just
terribly difficult, once you get the basics down.
I tell you what, though, it's that whole scene and that whole area and now that industry, that is all. You really do feel like you're in the New England area doing your, railroading.
Hopefully,
it looks
just like Pennsylvania, but
it just looks exactly the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. It's just that building blows me away. That I think you did such a great job with it, and the idea of putting and hiding that track inside that was
kind of semi-brilliant.
That was you get the golf you get a golf
moment of inspiration.
So I'm stealing that. I'm going to steal that idea. So just so you know, that was really good, Mike. That was a great idea.
It's not trademarked, and it's not not that original. I make liberal use of pictures. I'm visual, so it's how I learn. I can learn something very easily by watching it. And let's face it, been doing it a long time. So, eventually you kind of get good at it. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's like a half a century of doing this. So, even a slow study will get good at it eventually, right?
There's hope for us yet, is what you're saying.
Right?
Yeah. Don't give up. But because of the pictures, right? You say it looks like this and that's no accident, because I'm looking at that picture and I'm getting that in my head and I know how I want it to look. And I make liberal use of the pictures before, during, and after construction, during the scenicking stage. You know what I mean? So all these places, of course, I visited. I've got the place in my mind's eye as well. So there's no substitute for, if you're modeling a particular prototype, experience it firsthand.
So is this build gonna be in any publications anywhere in the future? Because this seems like
it'll be. Well, I've got a column coming out. Maybe in a few days, actually. But and that'll be on more of the Pittston Junction backdrop-y kind of portion of tonight. So you kind of got an advanced look at the Milazzo one. That'll probably be my next column.
Yeah.
But there's also talk with Model Railroad Hobbyists of the long-awaited track plan that Joe Fugate is going to be working on. And everybody, including myself, wants to see that. I don't really know how you do a track plan that's meaningful to the viewer, that is a multi-level situation.
Yeah.
So Joe has gotten my hand-drawn scribbles, and he's got lots of pictures. And then we did a video that he recorded as I walked around the entire basement twice, literally just following every inch of it. He recorded it so that when he gets a moment to start working on the track plan, he's literally going to watch the video, pause it, and then it'll be iterative. So, he'll put it down, send it to me, and I'll say, no, that's not it. It's, so, or he might just nail it, based on all the information I gave to him. So I'm dying to see that. We are talking about a layout feature that would be in the magazine probably. Probably midwinter would be my guess on that.
Oh,
and that would be something where there'll probably be some video. There'll be some, much more professionally done pictures, translation, not necessarily by me.
Yes, very professionally done, like the Second Section podcast. I
think you guys do a hell of a professional. Have you seen my podcast? I mean, really?
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right up there with us. Right in that tier of production.
I think this thing you do with your tool that you do this with is very slick, personally.
StreamYard's a lot of fun, and I know Ray Arnott from Around the Layout, he uses it too, and it is a slick tool, that's for sure. So
if I wasn't in IT and didn't want to spend less time on the computer, I might look at it. But you're lucky you get what you get out of it.
Yeah. So that's going to be upcoming in Model Railroad Hobbyists. So I think all the folks here in the section crew this evening would certainly would want to have a part 2 of a teaser for that article. At least I would think so.
Sure.
If you'd be willing to do it, and
sure.
that'd be fantastic.
Would that get me a 12-inch sub instead of a 6?
Yeah. So you only get the 6-inch sub off of the
value
menu
side
of the
value menu side.
Yeah, right. It's
so I get more toppings if I come back.
Yes, you get the more times we punch your card, the more toppings that you get on it.
Yeah,
I'm a patient guy, so that could work.
No, it's always a fantastic time when Mike Rose comes to the Second Section. That's for sure. So, I guess Mike, before we close up shop for this evening, any final thoughts to the scene, or any tips that you would want to impart upon those who want to tackle a scratch building project? What would be some very fundamental things that you would want to impart on someone who's just trying this out for the first time?
I guess going back to when I first started doing clinics and, going to meets and stuff like that, which obviously wasn't 50 years of that stuff. Maybe that would be like maybe the last, I don't know, 20, maybe 25 years. And doing the weathering DVD and all of that, the overarching theme or fear that I get from people is fear of messing it up. So on my weathering DVD and in some of my clinics, I talk about techniques that are reversible, so that if you do mess it up, you can start over and you're not permanently messing anything up. But even beyond that, how do you learn to do anything? You give it a shot. Right. You might make a mistake. You probably make a lot of mistakes. I've made millions of mistakes. I don't repeat mistakes typically. So you learn from your mistakes. So the more mistakes you make, the more you know, the less you screw up.
Yeah. And it's just starting and trying.
Yeah. I mean, this is supposed to be fun, right? So if you're doing this, I've always maintained there's two kinds of people. There's the people that enjoy the process of doing something, and there's end result people. I don't know if you've experienced this with your layouts. A lot of times you get non-modeler visits that want to see the layout. And there's really only two kinds of comments. There's the, wow, this is really cool. How did you do this comment? And there's the, boy, this looks like a lot of work. When's it going to be done? And there's not much in between. And we've experienced both, right? So if you're the kind of person that is the latter, boy, I just want to get it done, hire somebody to make it. You know what I mean? You're not going to enjoy the process of doing it. We're supposed to be modelers. We model stuff. We make stuff. That's what we do. We're supposed to enjoy that. And modeling is not a lost art. My advice is always go for it. It's probably going to be more fun than you can picture.
Yeah.
Save your fear for your real life. There's no fear involved in model railroading. Have fun. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun. You're not doing it right.
That's it. There's the t-shirt, right?
That's the Yep.
That's the t-shirts. So, Mike, I can't thank you enough. I mean, you've been one of my mentors from afar for a long time now. And, every time that you come on the show, or anytime that I look at your Facebook group, with the crew call and stuff that you post there, I learn something. And then I actually go and take those learnings and then I try it. And that's how, I've had a lot of success. And, it's from the help from you guys that you post out on the internet and come on the show and leave us little nuggets. So thank you for taking the time to do this evening.
And I've learned from a long list of good modelers too.
Yeah, that's for sure. And SP Steve, he's right. Always a great show when Mike Rose is on. That's for sure. Yep. And so Mike, any last words here before the interrogation goes poorly for you this evening in the hole?
No, I'm good. I just want to thank everybody for their attention, and always a good time being on with you guys. So don't feel like it's a burden. Yeah. So make sure that you're checking, we'll say Mike Rose out at mrhobby.com and the Dartmouth Locomotive Works. And you can, if you need a sound install or some fun work there, make sure you hit them up. You can find them at Crew Call with Mike Rose. I don't do Steam anymore. I've never never enjoyed a Steam install.
Yeah, Steam's tough. My son likes Steam.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are good Steam installers out there.
Yeah, I'm not one of them. I'm garbage. So yeah, make sure you check Mike out. He uses top of the line gear from ESU and Scale Sound Systems. which we all love here at Second Section. And then again, check his podcast out. I think just had one release, if I'm not mistaken here, this last time with Scott Mason, correct?
Yep. The modelrailroadpodcast.com.
And that's right. Very good. So again, want to thank the section crew this evening. Fantastic chat. A lot of great questions and a lot of good modeling topics. And yeah, Justin with the timely comment. No worries, Mike. We can always do the steam if you want to.
There you go.
There you go. Justin from Engine House Services.
Justin
Again,
needs to send me his contact info so I can send my steam inquiries to him.
There you go. Actually, you can just go right to Engine House. They got a little services page. And again, if you're just tuning in, before midnight tonight, Second Section has got a sponsor with Engine House, enginehouseservices.com. You get 10% off the whole cart at the purchase. I already made mine just by using the promo code on the screen here. So
that's Central Time.
Yeah, that's when the chariot turns into a pumpkin, midnight Central. So, Mike Ostertag, any final comments here before we shut her down for tonight?
Nope. Just thanks, Mike, again.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure having you on the show. It never ceases to amaze every single time I get the chance to see the layout and
inspiring.
One of these days, Andy and you and I, we got to get down by your layout and see it in person. We're gonna have that. We're gonna have to make that happen.
Might be worth it.
You know what? Let's do it. Let's put it on the bucket list here.
Yep.
Mike, if you'd have us, that would be just fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, gang.
No ice
Otherwise,
cream.
thank you very much for coming
No
on.
ice cream.
No ice cream.
No ice cream. No.
Very good. All right. So as on behalf of Mike and myself here in the section crew, I want to thank everyone again. And we'll be back on the air live in 2 weeks with another fun topic around model railroading. So hit us up on the Facebook page in the meanwhile on that Second Section podcast. And then, of course, you can find us at secondsectionpodcast.com. So I want to thank everyone again, and y'all have a good night. We'll see you later. Night.
Thanks, everybody.
Night.